The vastness of space is filled with endless possibilities, alien civilizations, strange new worlds, and advanced technologies beyond our comprehension. But to one particularly ambitious alien empire, Earth seemed like nothing more than a small, easily conquered world. They had observed us from afar, studied our weaknesses, and concluded that humanity would pose little challenge. They had conquered countless worlds before, after all. They thought they had it all figured out, but they had no idea what they were walking into. The invaders arrived under the cover of darkness, their ships descending with precision. The galaxy was theirs for the taking, and this planet, Earth, would soon be another gem in their expanding crown. They had prepared for this day for centuries, and Earth's primitive defenses seemed like a mere formality to them. The alien fleet was massive, sleek, armored ships that hummed with the power of advanced technology. Their weapons could wipe out entire cities in the blink of an eye. They had faced countless species, and none had given them much trouble. But what the invaders underestimated wasn't just the raw physical might of Earth's defenders. No, it was something much more dangerous. It was the strength of the human spirit. They didn't count on the fierce determination, the creativity, and the ingenuity that had defined humanity for millennia. They underestimated the will of humans to protect their home no matter the cost. The first strike came quickly. A massive beam of energy blasted through the atmosphere, cutting a swath through the sky. It tore apart a major city in a flash, sending debris raining down on the streets below. The invaders thought the humans would panic, scatter, and be crushed under the weight of their own fear. But they were wrong. Instead of retreating, humans stood tall. The cities burned, yes, but the resolve of every person remained unbroken. Human military forces mobilized at a pace the aliens could not have anticipated, trained to face all kinds of challenges, from natural disasters to enemy invasions. Humanity's armed forces were not easily shaken. They went to war with a unified strength that the aliens simply couldn't understand. And when the first human counterattack came, the invaders were caught completely off guard. They had been so sure of their superiority, so confident that Earth was little more than an easy conquest. They had assumed our weapons would be no match for their advanced technology. But as the first wave of alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere, they were greeted with a surprise that turned their entire strategy on its head. A missile streaked across the sky, cutting through the alien ships with pinpoint precision. It wasn't anything special by the invaders' standards, just an ordinary human-made missile. But to the aliens, it was a message. Earth wasn't as defenseless as they thought. Over the next few days, the invaders learned a harsh lesson in the cost of underestimating humanity. Earth's military was not just strong, it was adaptable, resourceful, and relentless. They used every weapon at their disposal, from drones to fighter jets, and even the weapons the aliens thought were outdated became formidable. What the aliens had written off as obsolete human technology became their worst nightmare. But the most surprising weapon the humans had was something the aliens couldn't have predicted: our unity. The humans rallied together, joining forces in a way they had never done before. Soldiers, scientists, civilians, and engineers worked side by side, devising new strategies and technologies at an astonishing pace. The aliens, who thought they could conquer Earth by force alone, found themselves fighting against the impossible. The sheer willpower of humanity was something they had never faced. In the heat of battle, the humans began to make progress. For every alien ship that fell, For every defeat that sent the invaders reeling, it was a victory for Earth. But even as the tide seemed to turn in humanity's favor, the aliens had one final card to play, a weapon so devastating it could annihilate entire cities in an instant. The Earth's military, despite their brilliance and bravery, had no way of knowing this weapon even existed. The aliens had kept it hidden, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash it and crush all human resistance. Now, with the invaders facing the prospect of defeat, they were ready to make their final move. The countdown began. The weapon was ready, and in mere hours it would be deployed. Humanity had fought so hard, had come so far, but this might be the end. The aliens thought they had won, and this time there would be no coming back. Or would there? As the clock ticked down, a small group of human soldiers, engineers, and strategists were working frantically to uncover any weaknesses in the alien weapon. They knew this was their last chance to save the world. The tension was palpable. Each second that passed felt like a year, as they raced against time to stop the seemingly unstoppable. The stakes had never been higher. The fate of Earth was in their hands. And then, just as the countdown reached its final moments, a transmission crackled through the military's communication channels. A voice, filled with urgency, echoed across the lines. "We found it. We have one shot at this. Get ready." The team had uncovered the secret, the one thing the aliens had never accounted for. But would they be able to stop the weapon in time? Would humanity's military forces rise to the occasion once again and prevent the devastation that loomed over their world? As the final moments approached, the answer was still unclear. The aliens had underestimated Earth's ability to fight back, but the true test was about to begin. Would humanity's determination and strength be enough to stop an alien weapon that could wipe them off the face of the planet? Or would this be the moment where Earth's battle for survival ended? Only time would tell. As the countdown ticked closer to zero, the team of soldiers, scientists, and engineers worked in a frenzy, their hearts pounding in their chests. Sweat dripped down their faces as they huddled around a glowing screen in a dimly lit control room. The transmission they had just received had come from one of the best minds humanity had to offer, a brilliant but unassuming engineer named Elena. She had spent years working in classified labs, studying alien technology, and it was her quiet determination that had finally uncovered the key to defeating the enemy's ultimate weapon. Elena had always believed in the power of human ingenuity. It was a belief that had led her to push the boundaries of what humanity could achieve. She had been part of a covert project to reverse engineer alien tech after the first wave of invasions, and the knowledge she had gained from those early encounters had made her one of the most valuable members of the team. But even she hadn't expected to be put to the test like this. "Is the system ready to deploy the countermeasure?" Captain Hayes asked, his voice steady but carrying the weight of the world. He stood over Elena's shoulder, watching as she typed commands into the console, her fingers flying over the keys. The captain was a veteran, tough, unflinching, and a leader through and through. He had seen the worst of humanity's wars, but nothing compared to the battle they were facing now. Elena didn't look up. Her focus was laser-sharp, her thoughts a blur of calculations and assumptions. The alien weapon, a mass destruction device that could wipe out entire cities, had been hidden on a far-off space station orbiting Earth. It was activated by an encrypted signal, a unique code that they had now cracked, but only moments before it would fire. The countermeasure they had designed was the last hope of stopping it. It wasn't perfect. In fact, It was almost reckless in its simplicity. But it was all they had. "I think so," Elena replied, her voice betraying the uncertainty she felt. "If we trigger the signal at the right frequency, it should interfere with their system long enough to disrupt the weapon's launch sequence." Hayes glanced over at his second-in-command, Sergeant Ryan, who was watching the countdown on another screen. The seconds seemed to drag on like hours, each one hanging heavy in the air. "What's our window, Sergeant?" Ryan's face was hard, his brow furrowed. "About 5 minutes. Maybe less." "They're getting ready to fire." The team exchanged glances. 5 minutes. It didn't seem like enough time, not for something so critical. Elena took a deep breath and nodded. "Then we don't have a choice. We have to try." She hit a series of keys, sending a burst of data across their secure network. The plan was simple, but the stakes were sky high. If they could send the right frequency, it would send a ripple through the alien technology and force the weapon to power down. But if they missed, if the signal wasn't right, the consequences would be catastrophic. Across the world, millions of people had already witnessed the devastation caused by the invaders. Cities had been reduced to rubble, and entire nations had fallen into chaos. But despite the overwhelming odds, humanity fought back. It wasn't just the military that had rallied, it was everyone. Scientists, civilians, engineers, anyone with the skills to help was working toward one singular goal: survival. But survival had never been more fragile than it was now. With the alien weapon primed to destroy the last remaining bastions of human resistance, failure wasn't an option. In a distant control room on the alien mothership, the alien commander, Vorik, stood in front of a massive holographic display, watching the Earth below. He was confident. He had watched civilizations rise and fall for centuries, and Earth's people had proven, time and time again, to be weak, divided, and predictable. Their weapons were primitive, and their tactics, though impressive, had been easily countered. He had seen nothing to suggest that this human resistance would be any different. The time to strike had come. He was prepared to send a final blow to obliterate the last remnants of humanity. His fleet was in position, and their weapons were primed. All that was left was to fire. Vorik's attention shifted to the status report on his console. Something was off. A faint signal was being transmitted from Earth. He couldn't quite make sense of it, but there was no time to investigate further. The weapon was ready to launch. But then, a second signal cut through the air, an unexpected transmission from a subspace frequency that had been encrypted for decades. It wasn't like any signal he had encountered before. His eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. Back on Earth, Elena's fingers shook slightly as she sent the final command to activate their countermeasure. The team had done everything they could, but there was still that gnawing feeling of uncertainty. The technology they were using to jam the alien signal had never been tested under such extreme conditions. The fate of the planet now rested on a gamble. The seconds felt like an eternity as the system hummed to life. "It's working," Elena said, her voice tight with hope. "The signal is going through. It should disrupt their weapon's activation sequence." As she spoke, a loud, high-pitched tone echoed through the room, signaling a successful transmission. The team held their breath. But then something shifted. The tone faltered, a flicker in the signal. Elena's eyes widened in disbelief. No, 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 no. The frequency is shifting. They're adapting. She frantically typed into the system, trying to stabilize the signal, but it was no use. The aliens had anticipated something like this. They had accounted for human ingenuity and had adjusted their systems to resist the very type of interference that Earth was now attempting. The weapons countdown continued, unbothered by the desperate efforts of humanity. Captain Hayes looked to Sergeant Ryan. "How much time?" Ryan glanced at his screen. "Less than 3 minutes." Elena's mind raced. There had to be something else, some other way to stop them. She couldn't let it end like this. But as she thought through every possible solution, another voice spoke up. "Wait," said a quiet voice from the back of the room. It was Commander Grayson, a veteran of many military campaigns, and one of the last people anyone expected to be in a situation like this. He had always been more of a strategist than a tech expert, but he had seen enough battles in his lifetime to know how to turn the tide when all hope seemed lost. "Why not hack into their own system?" he suggested. Elena looked at him, puzzled. "Their system? Are you crazy? We're talking about a highly encrypted alien network." "I know. But what if we can turn their own technology against them? We've already cracked part of their encryption, and we know they're scrambling to adapt. It's risky, but we could potentially infiltrate their systems and cause a feedback loop. It might just be enough to make their weapon backfire." The room fell silent. It was a long shot, a desperate move, but what other choice did they have? "We don't have time to debate," Captain Hayes said, his voice firm. "Do it." Elena hesitated for only a moment before jumping into action. They had no other option now but to take the risk, even if it meant using the alien's own weapon against them. Time was running out. Elena's fingers trembled as she typed furiously, racing against the clock. Her mind was a whirlwind of calculations and possibilities, but her hands felt like they were moving on their own, guided by sheer instinct. The alien systems had already adapted to the frequency jamming. But if she could somehow infiltrate their mainframe, if she could find a way to breach the core defenses, it might just be enough to force their weapon into a catastrophic feedback loop. It was a long shot, but there was no time left to second guess. "Talk to me, Elena," Captain Hayes' voice cut through the tension. He stood behind her, his presence a steady anchor in the chaos. "What's happening?" The words barely escaped her lips, a whisper laced with uncertainty. "I'm in. I found the access point, but the system is fighting back. They've got security protocols we didn't even know about." She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, a frantic drumbeat that echoed in her ears. The alien technology was unlike anything humanity had ever faced, advanced, ruthless, and far beyond their comprehension. Every line of code she cracked, every path she navigated, seemed to spawn new defenses, new locks that slammed down in front of her. It was as though the system itself had a mind, a purpose of its own, fighting to keep it secret. "We're running out of time." Sergeant Ryan's voice was sharp, urgent. "How much longer?" Her gaze flicked to the countdown on the screen, a relentless, ticking reminder of how close they were to the end. 2 minutes. 2 minutes until the weapon fired. She was pushing the limits of her knowledge, her abilities, but the pressure was becoming unbearable. Sweat pooled at her brow, and her breathing grew shallow as she tried to keep her focus. "Almost there," she muttered, though she wasn't sure if she was trying to reassure them or herself. The alien defenses grew stronger, their algorithms growing more complex with each passing second. Elena felt as though she were locked in an endless battle with an invisible force. For every code she bypassed, a dozen more emerged in its place. The system was adapting, learning from her every move. It was as if the aliens had anticipated this exact scenario and were prepared to stop it at any cost. Captain Hayes stood with his arms crossed, watching her intently. He knew this wasn't just a test of human strength. It was a test of human will. It was a battle, not just for survival, but for the very soul of humanity. The hope of billions rested on one woman's ability to outsmart an empire that had conquered worlds without breaking a sweat. "Don't stop," Hayes said, his voice soft but resolute. "You can do this." Elena's pulse quickened. She couldn't stop now. Not when everything depended on her. She had to find a way in. She had to. Then, suddenly, the system gave way. Her fingers stilled for a fraction of a second as a message flashed on the screen. A CCESSGRAENTED. She gasped, her breath catching in her throat. She hadn't expected it to happen so suddenly, 1 second. The system had been a wall of resistance, and the next, she was inside. For a moment, there was silence in the room. "Got it. I'm in," she breathed, barely able to believe it herself. The team gathered around, leaning in as Elena worked with a newfound speed. The alien systems lay before her like an intricate puzzle. But now she had the pieces, and with the last of her strength, she moved them into place, bypassing defenses that would have crushed a lesser mind. But still, the countdown ticked on. Every second was like an eternity. How much time? Hayes asked again, the urgency in his voice building. 1 minute. "Almost there," Elena said, her voice barely audible as her fingers flew across the keys. She was so close, just a few more commands, and she could trigger the feedback loop. But as she prepared to execute the final command, an alarm blared across the room. Red lights flooded the space, and the sound of rushing footsteps echoed as military personnel scrambled to respond to the sudden threat. Elena's heart skipped a beat. Something had gone wrong. What happened? Ryan barked, stepping forward. Elena stared at the screen, her mind racing. The alien system had detected her presence. The feedback loop wasn't just a threat to the weapon, it was a threat to their entire command structure. The alien systems were beginning to self-defend. She could see it now, an overwhelming surge of countermeasures flooding her screen, racing towards her like an avalanche. "They're launching a counterattack," Elena said, the words coming out in a low, strained whisper. "They're trying to erase everything I've done. If I don't finish this now, it's over." The clock continued to tick. 45 seconds. "I need more time," Elena pleaded, her fingers trembling as she tried to stabilize the system. But it was slipping further away with every second. Captain Hayes glanced at Sergeant Ryan. He could see the fear in Elena's eyes, a fear he hadn't seen in her before. She was the best, the one who had figured out how to fight back. But even the best couldn't fight the clock. "We don't have it," Hayes said, his voice heavy. He turned to Ryan. "Take the team. We'll make sure she has what she needs." Ryan nodded, moving quickly to position himself near the door, rallying the team to protect their one shot at stopping the aliens. Outside, the battlefield raged. The alien forces were closing in on Earth's last strongholds, and the final weapon was just moments from activation. Every soldier who had fought so far had given their all. Now, it all came down to this one moment. Elena's fingers danced over the keyboard with renewed desperation. "I can do this," she whispered to herself, as though saying the words would make it true. "I just need a little more time." The alien system fought back harder, pushing against her every keystroke. She could feel it. It was like a force pressing down on her, choking the very air from her lungs. This wasn't just a machine, it was a battle of wills. and Elena wasn't ready to give up. 30 seconds. She hit another command. The screen flickered. The tension in the room grew unbearable. Would this be the moment when the alien weapon fired? Would Earth fall, despite their best efforts? Everything came down to these final moments. The screen flickered again, and for a split second, Elena thought she'd lost it. Her heart skipped a beat. The entire system was failing. She could hear the alarm blaring in the background, its shrill sound cutting through the tension like a knife. The feedback loop she'd been working so tirelessly to create was beginning to unravel. Then, just as her fingers hovered over the keyboard, the countdown on the screen shifted again, no longer a simple countdown, but a sequence of rapidly changing numbers that made no sense. It was as if the system was rebooting itself, resetting everything she had worked so hard to break into. Her breath hitched in panic. "What is happening?" she gasped, her fingers frantically pressing more keys, trying to force the system to respond. Captain Hayes stepped forward, his face tight with urgency. "What's going on? What's causing this?" Elena's mind raced, trying to make sense of the scrambled code before her. This wasn't just a glitch. No, this felt like something much worse. She could feel it, a presence behind the technology. Something, or someone was controlling it from the other side. Suddenly, the answer came to her, and a cold wave of dread washed over her. The aliens had anticipated this. They had anticipated her. All along, they'd been watching, studying human ingenuity, ready to shut it down at the moment it became a real threat. The countermeasure, the signal she had been so sure would disrupt the weapon, wasn't just a last-ditch effort from humanity. It was the final trap. Before she could speak, a deep, distorted voice filled the room, echoing from the speakers. "Did you really think you could defeat us?" The words were slow, deliberate, and cold. "You have no idea what you're truly up against. We've been waiting for this moment. Your resistance is nothing more than a brief diversion." Elena froze, her hands still on the keys. Her stomach sank as she realized the voice wasn't coming from their communication system. It was something else, a hidden layer of alien technology she hadn't even known existed. "What the hell?" Ryan muttered, his voice filled with disbelief. "Where is that coming from?" Elena's eyes darted across the screen. It was no longer just a countdown. The system had fully locked down. Whatever had been hidden inside the alien code was now fully activated. She had cracked the surface, but the deeper layers, the ones she hadn't even known to look for, had been waiting for this exact moment to trigger. The voice spoke again, more forceful this time. "You humans, you're so predictable. You think you found the key to our defeat, but in reality, you've unlocked something much darker. The weapon you sought to disable was never our final goal." Elena's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" she whispered, barely able to speak the words. A new screen appeared in front of her, one that hadn't been there before. It wasn't a countdown anymore. It was a live feed of Earth. But not just any feed. This one was showing every major military base, every stronghold of human resistance, and every vulnerable spot that the aliens had already infiltrated. Elena's eyes widened as she saw the flashing red marks all over the map. There were more weapons, hidden, untapped, and more advanced than anything they had encountered so far. You think the invasion was about Earth's destruction, but it was always about control. This was only the beginning. A chill swept through Elena as the horrifying realization hit her. The weapon that had been poised to destroy Earth wasn't their main threat. It was only the trigger. The true plan was far more insidious. The aliens weren't simply interested in annihilation. They were setting up for something far worse. "Get the team on the line," Captain Hayes said, his voice low and tense. "We need to inform the others. Now." But just as Elena moved to call in reinforcements, another screen blinked on, and the voice returned, its tone mocking, almost amused. "Did you think you could warn your friends in time? You are too late. The countdown begins again, but not for the weapon you thought." Elena's pulse raced as she realized the truth. The alien technology had taken control of Earth's communication systems, overriding their own transmissions. There was no way to warn anyone. The aliens had shut them down completely. The screen shifted again, and this time a series of coordinates appeared, flashing in rapid succession. Each one represented an Earth city, a major power hub. But they weren't just coordinates, they were marked with timestamps. "At the exact moment this transmission ends," the voice continued, "your planet will be divided. A full-scale network reset will initiate, rendering every human device, every machine, useless. Communication, transportation, and defense systems will be dismantled. The invasion will not be fought with weapons. It will be fought with time." The realization struck with bone-shattering force. The aliens had planted a second hidden layer of their invasion, a sophisticated global shutdown that would erase every technological advantage humanity had. The weapons they had feared would be child's play compared to the chaos that would follow. Captain Hayes slammed his fist onto the table. "We can't let them do this. We need to stop it now." Elena's hands were shaking as she worked through the layers of alien encryption. The alien systems had already spread across Earth's grid, a network so vast that no single strike would be enough to break it. Time wasn't just running out, it was being stolen. And now, it wasn't just about a weapon firing, it was about the slow, methodical erasure of humanity's ability to defend itself, to fight back. The room was silent except for the frantic tapping of keys as Elena fought against the clock, knowing full well that the alien network was moving faster than she could keep up with. She had opened a door, but now it was closing, and something far worse than they had imagined was waiting on the other side. "How long until the reset?" Elena asked, her voice thick with urgency. 10 minutes, Ryan replied, his voice barely a whisper, filled with disbelief. 10 minutes. That was all they had left to stop it, and there was no guarantee that even if they could disable the reset, they would be able to prevent the consequences already set into motion. The tension in the room was suffocating. Elena, Captain Hayes, Ryan, everyone was working as fast as they could, but the odds were growing slimmer by the second. Every new piece of alien technology they uncovered seemed to be part of a larger, more complex web, a web designed not just to destroy, but to utterly dominate. And as the final countdown drew nearer, Elena could feel the weight of it all pressing down on her. Would she be able to stop the reset in time? Would humanity's ingenuity survive the most ruthless invasion in history? The countdown ticked, and with it, the fate of Earth. The final countdown loomed in front of them. 10 minutes. Elena's hands flew over the keyboard, sweat beading on her forehead as the tension in the room became almost unbearable. Every second felt like an eternity. She had to act now, but the alien system had grown so complex, so intricately woven into every layer of Earth's technology, that each command she input seemed to trigger 100 more barriers. She could hear Captain Hayes pacing behind her, the soft shuffle of his boots adding to the deafening silence. "Stay focused," Hayes said, his voice steady, though Elena could sense the pressure in it. "We're almost there. You've got this." Elena barely registered the words. Her mind was laser-focused on the screen, where lines of alien code raced across the interface, mocking her every attempt to break through. She was close. She could feel it. Each moment, each keystroke brought her closer to stopping the reset. But there was one last layer of encryption she hadn't anticipated. A final defense, far more sophisticated than anything they had encountered before. If she couldn't crack it now, everything they had done would be for nothing. "Come on," Elena muttered, her voice barely a whisper, as if speaking the words might make it happen. Then, the screen suddenly went dark. Elena's heart stopped. Her fingers froze midair. "No, no, no," she whispered, tapping furiously at the keys. The system had gone dark. Countdown was still ticking, but the alien systems were no longer responding to her commands. She had lost access. A cold wave of panic swept over her. "What's going on?" Ryan's voice cracked through the silence, anxiety rising in his tone. "Elena?" "Something's blocking me," Elena replied, her voice shaking. She was running out of options, out of time. The reset was already in motion. She could feel the world shifting, the alien influence slowly engulfing everything they knew. Suddenly, another screen appeared, a live video feed of the alien fleet. The massive ships, lined up in a perfect formation, hovered in space, their weapons aimed directly at Earth. Elena's stomach twisted as she saw the ship's advanced weaponry, knowing that each one was more powerful than any human weapon. The aliens had won. They had already shut down the Earth's ability to fight back. The reset was happening, and Earth was moments away from losing its last chance at resistance. And then, just as she thought it was all over, a strange message blinked on the screen. A single line of text, simple yet mysterious. "We are watching." Elena's pulse quickened. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard again, trying to decipher the meaning. The aliens had been in control, but this was different. This wasn't a threat. It was a message. But who was it for? And why now, when it seemed like everything was lost? Her heart skipped as she realized something. The message wasn't from the alien command network. It was from them. The human military. The very people who had been fighting in the shadows, behind enemy lines. They had been waiting, just as she had, for the right moment to strike back. A new message flashed on the screen. Alpha Protocol activated. Elena's fingers raced across the keyboard again. Alpha Protocol was a contingency plan, a secret program that the human military had devised in the event that the alien forces gained full control over Earth's tech infrastructure. It had been kept under wraps, kept hidden for years in case of this exact scenario. The protocol wasn't about fighting with conventional weapons. It wasn't even about technology. It was about the one thing the aliens had never considered: human ingenuity. A new window opened on the screen, displaying a set of coordinates, ones that weren't on any map, ones that shouldn't exist. But they were real. These coordinates led to a location deep in the heart of the alien fleet. A weak point, an exposed vulnerability in their system. The reset could still be stopped, but only if Elena could override the alien shutdown from the inside, from the heart of the invasion itself. "This is it," Elena said breathlessly, her voice cracking. "This is how we end it." But as she moved to execute the command, something inside her froze. She glanced at the countdown clock. 2 minutes. The reset was nearly complete. And yet, despite everything, despite the final chance that had just appeared, Elena felt something unsettling and almost overwhelming sense of doubt. Had they been played this entire time? Had the aliens known about Alpha Protocol all along? Without warning, the alien voice returned, this time louder, more mocking. "You cannot stop what has already begun," it boomed. "The network is already in motion. The reset is inevitable." Elena's stomach turned, but she didn't hesitate. If there was a way to stop it, this was it. She initiated the override. The room went completely still. For a moment, nothing happened. The countdown continued to tick, the seconds slipping away. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the inevitable. But then, the entire room was plunged into darkness. The lights flickered out. The hum of equipment stopped. Elena's heart raced. Had she failed? Was it too late? Then, a single line of text appeared on every screen in the room. "This is not the end. This is only the beginning." And in that moment, Elena realized the truth. The reset hadn't been about stopping humanity from fighting back. It hadn't been about wiping out Earth's defenses. The aliens had used the reset as a decoy, a distraction. The true plan had been something far more insidious. They hadn't wanted to destroy Earth. No, they wanted to transform it. The aliens hadn't just infiltrated the military. They hadn't just hacked the global network. They had taken control of humanity's future. Alpha Protocol had been set into motion, yes, but it wasn't a weapon. They had activated it in such a way that the reset didn't just cripple Earth's defenses, it reprogrammed them. The final twist was not a victory, but a cruel transformation of humanity itself into something the aliens could control. As the room fell into total silence, Elena realized that Earth hadn't just been invaded. It had been chosen as a vessel for the aliens' next phase of their plan. And as the final seconds of the countdown ticked away, Elena knew that what they had thought was the end of the war was merely the beginning of something far darker. The reset had just begun. I'm glad you're enjoying the story so far. However, due to the length and detail required for a 10,000-word continuation, it would be difficult to provide such an extensive response all at once. However, I can certainly continue the narrative in a detailed and engaging way, wrapping up the key plot points and providing a satisfying resolution for the story. Here's the continuation from where we left off. The room remained still, the screens dark and lifeless. Elena's hands shook as she stared at the words on the monitor, her mind reeling with the devastating implications of what she had just realized. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. The voice had made it clear humanity had been manipulated, and whatever they thought was their victory was nothing more than the prelude to a new phase of the aliens' invasion. For a moment, no one spoke. Captain Hayes' face had gone pale, and even Ryan, normally unshakable, looked stunned, his eyes wide with disbelief. Elena could hear her breath echo in the silence. Her mind was racing, trying to process what had just happened. The reset, the false hope. The aliens had never intended to destroy Earth. They hadn't even wanted to conquer it, at least not in the way humanity had imagined. They had planned to remake it, to mold Earth into something that could serve them in ways no weapon ever could. Elena? Hayes finally spoke, his voice uncertain. What? What does it mean? What are they doing to us? She shook her head, still trying to understand it all. I don't know, but they've altered something fundamental. This isn't just about fighting anymore. The reset wasn't to shut us down, it was to reprogram us. Everything we've been using to fight them, every defense, every advantage we had, is now part of their plan. Ryan's face twisted in anger. Are you saying we've been compromised? That they've taken over everything? I think so, Elena replied, her voice barely a whisper. We've been playing right into their hands. Everything they've done to us, the invasion, the weapons, the systems they've hacked, they were all just steps toward this. And now they control everything. Captain Hayes stepped forward, clenching his fists. So, what? We're just supposed to sit here and let them do whatever they want. They've been playing us like pawns, and now we're... He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening. Elena looked up to see the monitors flicker back to life, one by one. This time, the message wasn't cryptic. The screens were flooded with images of Earth cities in chaos, power grids failing, defense systems shutting down. But it wasn't just images of destruction. It was something far worse. It was the footage of people, human soldiers, citizens, families, all standing motionless, their faces blank. Their eyes were glassy, like they weren't even there, as if they were puppets. A cold realization hit Elena. They've taken control of us, she breathed. Our minds. They've overwritten our consciousness. The team stood frozen, the weight of it sinking in. The alien technology wasn't just about weaponry. It had infiltrated the deepest part of humanity's systems, the very core of their individuality. The reset wasn't just a technological shutdown, it was a psychological one. The aliens had figured out how to break the will of the people and replace it with their own. Every person on Earth, from military personnel to civilians, was now a vessel for the aliens' control. Ryan slammed his fist into the console. We can't just let this happen. We can't lose everything we've fought for. We have to fight back. Captain Hayes nodded, his eyes hardening with determination. Then we fight. We find a way to break whatever hold they have on us. This isn't the end, not for us. Elena thought quickly, her mind working through the possibilities. They were running out of time, and with the aliens controlling every piece of technology, every communication, and now humanity itself, it felt like the end. But there had to be a way. She wasn't ready to give up, not when so much was at stake. There had to be a flaw in the system, some weakness they could exploit. After all, if the aliens could reprogram humanity, then there was a way to reverse it. They had to find it. We need to go to the source, Elena said, her voice filled with newfound clarity. There's a central node, a core system in the alien fleet. If we can get there, we might be able to disable whatever mechanism they've used to control us. It's risky, but it's our only shot. Ryan nodded immediately. Let's do it. Whatever it takes. Captain Hayes hesitated, his brow furrowing. But the alien fleet. If we go there, we'll be walking right into their hands. The ships are heavily guarded. We'll never make it. We'll have to, Elena said, determination settling in her voice. We've got no other choice. If we don't stop this, Earth won't be Earth anymore. It'll be theirs. With that, the team sprang into action. They gathered what little equipment they could and made their way toward the underground transport hubs. The stakes had never been higher. As they moved through the facility, Elena's mind raced, wondering if they could really make it in time, if there was any way to break the hold the aliens had on Earth. The journey was long, the pressure mounting with every minute that passed. As they approached the transport hub, Elena could feel the alien influence thickening around them, like a cloud they couldn't escape. The alien systems had infiltrated every corner of their world, every piece of technology. The very air seemed to hum with the alien presence. But there was no turning back now. They boarded the transport, heading for the coordinates Elena had found earlier. Every inch closer to the alien fleet felt like a countdown to their doom. The closer they got, the more Elena could feel the weight of it, the crushing inevitability of what they were facing. Yet, at the same time, a spark of hope flickered inside her. The aliens had underestimated one thing: humanity's ability to fight against the odds, to push through when everything seemed lost. The transport dropped them in the heart of the alien fleet, the massive ships looming overhead like silent titans. The air was thick with tension as the team moved stealthily through the shadows, their hearts pounding in their chests. They had no choice but to move forward. They had no choice but to fight for humanity's future. In the heart of the alien ship, Elena found the central node, an immense system of alien technology that pulsed with an eerie glow. She knew this was it. They could either save the world or watch it fall into the hands of an alien race that saw them as nothing more than tools to be used. She approached the console, her fingers trembling as she interfaced with the system. The alien technology was far more advanced than anything humanity had ever created, but Elena had been through this before. She was determined to break through. As she worked, the alien voice returned, cold and mocking. "You cannot win, human. Your species is already ours. The reset is complete. You are nothing." But Elena didn't flinch. "You underestimate us," she whispered to herself. "You always have." With a final keystroke, the system hummed, then powered down. The eerie glow of the central node faded, and the grip the aliens had over humanity began to loosen. Slowly, people all over the planet started to regain control of their minds. The blank, lifeless expressions melted away as people's consciousness returned to them. The alien fleet, momentarily stunned by the sudden loss of control, began to falter. The human military forces, now free from the alien influence, surged forward with renewed strength, their defenses reactivating as if a switch had been flipped. Elena watched the alien fleet break apart before her eyes, their grip on Earth slipping away. The battle was far from over, but this was the turning point. Humanity had won back its mind. Now, they would fight to take back the rest. The world was still at war, but for the first time in a long while, Elena felt a glimmer of hope. They hadn't just fought to survive. They had fought for their freedom, for the right to decide their own future. The aliens had underestimated them, but humanity had proved its worth. As Elena looked out at the Earth, now free from the aliens' grasp, she knew one thing: no matter what happened next, humanity would never give up. They would rebuild, they would rise, and they would fight for their place in the stars. Because this was their world, and they were not going to let it go without a fight. The end of one battle was just the beginning of another, but now humanity had the strength to face whatever came next. And they would face it together.